The rain poured heavily that night when Daniel, a single dad working 2 jobs, found himself hurrying home after his late shift. His old jacket clung to him, soaked, but what stopped him in his tracks wasn't the storm, it was the sight of a young woman sitting on the park bench, shivering. She had no umbrella, no bag, just a thin sweater that did little against the cold. "Are you all right?" Daniel asked, his voice gentle. The girl lifted her eyes, tired, embarrassed, and on the verge of tears. "My name's Emily," she whispered. I don't have a place to stay tonight." Daniel thought of his own struggles, barely enough food for him and his 8-year-old son, Michael. Yet, something in Emily's trembling voice struck a chord. He remembered nights when he and Michael had gone hungry, when kindness from strangers kept them going. Without a second thought, he extended his hand. "Come on. Our place isn't much, but it's warm." Emily hesitated but finally followed. When they entered Daniel's small, cluttered apartment, Michael ran up with his usual energy. "Dad, who's this?" Daniel smiled. "A friend who needs our help." Emily forced a small smile, touched by the simple welcome. She didn't know this man and his boy were about to change her life, and neither did Daniel realize the truth about who Emily really was. Because Emily wasn't just a broke college student, she was the daughter of a millionaire. Emily looked around the small apartment with wide eyes. The wallpaper was peeling, the furniture was worn, and the heater made a faint rattling sound, but it felt warmer than any mansion she'd ever stepped into. Michael offered her a blanket with a grin. "It's not new, but it's my favorite one." Emily wrapped it around herself, surprised at how safe she felt. "Thank you," she murmured. Daniel busied himself in the tiny kitchen, heating up leftover soup. He placed the steaming bowl in front of her, apologizing. "It's not much, but it'll help." Emily stared at the bowl, emotions flooding her chest. She had grown up with chefs, silver spoons, and crystal plates, but never had food tasted like kindness before. She blinked back tears. "This is perfect." Michael chatted excitedly about school, proudly showing Emily his drawings taped to the wall. "Dad works a lot, but he always comes to my soccer games," he said with a smile that made Emily's heart ache. That night, lying on the small couch Daniel had given her, Emily couldn't sleep. She thought of her father's mansion, her untouched credit cards, and the luxury she had left behind after a bitter fight with him. For the first time, she realized money didn't mean home, people did. As Daniel quietly tucked Michael into bed, Emily overheard him whisper, "We don't have much, son, but we'll always share what we have." Her chest tightened. She had never met anyone so selfless. What Daniel didn't know was that his simple act of kindness would soon lead to a truth big enough to change both their lives forever. Over the next few days, Emily settled into Daniel's world. She walked Michael to school, helped with chores, and even cooked dinner when Daniel came home exhausted from his shift. Michael adored her. "Emily helps me with math better than anyone," he boasted one night at the dinner table. Daniel smiled gratefully, noticing how Emily's presence brought laughter back into their small home. But Emily carried a secret that weighed heavier each day. When she borrowed Daniel's old laptop to check her school email, the screen lit up with messages from her university, professors addressing her as Emily Hartwell. She quickly closed the tab, praying Daniel hadn't noticed. The name Hartwell was famous. Her father owned companies across the country, his wealth splashed across magazines. Emily remembered their fight clearly, her father wanting to control her future, her refusing to live under his shadow. She had stormed out with nothing, determined to survive on her own. But now, as she watched Daniel struggle to stretch every dollar, guilt clawed at her. One evening, when Daniel's paycheck fell short of the rent, Emily offered quietly, "I could help, maybe get a part-time job." Daniel shook his head firmly. "You're young. Focus on your studies. We'll manage. We always do." The certainty in his voice humbled her. He had nothing, yet he still thought of her future. That night, Emily stood by the window, looking at the city lights. She wanted to tell Daniel the truth, that she wasn't just a broke student, but the daughter of a man whose fortune could erase all his struggles in an instant. But something held her back. For the first time, someone cared for her without knowing her last name. And she wasn't ready to let that go. The first sign of trouble came on a Friday evening. Daniel returned home later than usual, shoulders heavy, his face pale. Emily noticed immediately. "Everything okay?" she asked. He forced a smile. "Just tired." But later, when Michael had gone to bed, Emily overheard him on the phone with the landlord. His voice was low, strained. "Please, just one more week. I'll have it by then." Her stomach twisted. They were behind on rent. The next morning, Daniel skipped breakfast, claiming he wasn't hungry. Emily knew better. She quietly left her portion of toast on his plate, pretending she was full. He gave her a grateful look but said nothing. That afternoon, as Daniel prepared to leave for his second job, Michael tugged on his sleeve. "Dad, my soccer game's tonight. You promised you'd come." Daniel froze, torn between responsibility and love. Emily stepped forward. "I'll go with him," she offered quickly. "You don't have to worry." Daniel's eyes softened, but guilt shadowed them. "I should be there." She shook her head gently. "You're already doing more than anyone I've ever known." At the game, Emily cheered louder than anyone. Michael scored the winning goal, scanning the crowd, hoping to see his father. When he didn't, his face fell, until he spotted Emily clapping, smiling through tears. He ran to her and hugged her tight. That night, Emily lay awake, wrestling with her secret. Daniel was sacrificing everything for his son and still sharing what little they had with her. She couldn't let them lose their home. The time was coming when Emily would have to reveal who she really was, whether she was ready or not. 2 days later, everything came crashing down. The landlord showed up at the door, demanding payment Daniel didn't have. His face burned with shame as Michael clung to his side, confused and scared. "Please," Daniel begged. "Just give me until payday." But the landlord shook his head. "No more delays." Emily's heart pounded. She couldn't stay silent any longer. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. "I'll pay it. Right now." Daniel turned, stunned. "Emily, what are you talking about? You don't have that kind of money." Tears welled in her eyes as she finally spoke the words she'd been holding back. "My name isn't just Emily. It's Emily Hartwell. My father is Charles Hartwell, the millionaire." The room fell silent. Daniel blinked in disbelief. Michael's eyes widened. Emily's voice trembled. "I left because I wanted to live like everyone else, to be seen for who I am, not for my father's money. But you gave me a home when I had nothing. You treated me like family without knowing the truth. That's worth more than any fortune." Daniel rubbed a hand over his face, overwhelmed. Finally, he sighed, his voice steady but gentle. "Emily, you didn't need money to belong here. You already do." Emily smiled through tears. "Then let me help. Not with charity, but with gratitude." Together, they paid the rent. More than that, they built something deeper: trust, respect, and love that no wealth could buy. For Daniel and Michael, Emily wasn't just the daughter of a millionaire, she was the friend who made their little family whole. And for Emily, she had finally found what money never gave her: a true home.